Hello, everyone. Welcome to Click Moments, where the right information at the right time is a portal from where you are to where you want to be. And I'm your host, Beth Orr. And today we have a special guest. We have a friend of mine, a new friend of mine, Amanda McLenon. And she is a local Asheville artist. And what I really love about her story is I've been meeting so many people who used to be something else. We've had such traditional roles. So she was on the marine biologist path, and now she's a full-time artist in Asheville. So I'm always curious how people get from where they are and where they thought that they were going to be to this new place. So welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we're actually in Weaverville, North Carolina right now having this interview. And can you talk to the viewers about how is it, if we could just start with, how did you go from like marine biologist to doing something different? And I don't know if you made that first leap to being an artist or what happened, but can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I actually took a few career leaps in my life.
Okay.
I actually started as a high school biology teacher for about 7 years. And in that case, I feel like I did it as long as I could do it well. Mm-hmm. And I really started to get physical nudges that I was not happy and not loving that, and I was really wanting to go back to graduate school. So that was my first leap, was leaving what was seen as a very desirable teaching position in a really good district. I was close to being what do you call it? Tenured as a teacher for retirement, but every ounce of me did not want to do it anymore, and I really wanted to go back to school. So that was my first leap.
Can you talk a little bit about, like, so for people out here that I think oftentimes we second guess, like, what it is within us? Is it just our mind wants to do something different, or did you feel something in your body, or what was it that said, not this?
For me, it's very physical.
Okay.
I unfortunately get pretty sick every time I need to take a leap or make a big change.
Okay.
I get migraine headaches, or I just get like horrible stomach pains, body aches. Like I truly don't feel well. And then I'll also at the same time have those mental nudges of like, God, I don't think this is my thing. This is my forever. I'm really wanting to do something else, being afraid of it. And I think the more I stayed, the louder those things would get.
How soon after you made a different decision did your migraines and other physical symptoms go away?
Almost immediately.
Really?
Almost immediately.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like every time I've made one of these big decisions, the physical symptoms, disappear. Days, weeks at the most, where it was just like, wow, I haven't had a migraine since my 20s when I made that first leap. Have not had one since, and I was having them regularly.
Were you even getting like going to the doctor trying to figure out what was happening?
Absolutely. I was going to the doctor, I was going to see a therapist, everything, and it just, all of the physical symptoms literally went away. So that is my body saying something is not in alignment, and that's how I hear it. I hear it loudest in physical symptoms that I think are an illness, but they're truly just stress in my body, that stress of feeling out of alignment and not where I want to be, not doing what I want to do.
It's interesting because when you were talking about that, I got to thinking, you said fear. And so you said that you were afraid to leave. And I'm wondering, so you talked about like once you got in alignment and you made a decision that was aligned with what direction you thought you should go, that those symptoms went away. But how do you think fear played into what you were experiencing? And then also as an add-on, how do you handle fear and how do you approach fear in order to get beyond it? Because I think fear stops a lot of us from doing something for a long time.
I do think fear stops. Yeah, fear is probably the main thing that stops us from making big career changes or big life changes.
Right.
Question again? How did fear contribute? Well, I think.
Yeah, how did it contribute to your physical?
I think the physical is the fear manifesting. That's, I would ruminate on thoughts and the fear of the unknown of what am I going to do next, or how am I going to sustain myself financially. Those were the things that were stopping me. But I've found every time, so I leapt from teaching and then later marine biology career. I found each time that the path would just present itself. But I had to take the leap. I had to take the leap before I could see the path in front of me.
Interesting.
So I was super scared in that decision-making mode when I was still in that place where I was unhappy. And I couldn't feel that go away until I quit the job or left the relationship or whatever that thing was that I was jumping away from. As soon as I left that, I feel like the space would open up and the path forward became more clear, and then the fear dissipates.
So a lot of times people like to have, like, if you go into a job, you pretty much know that if I do this, then that's going to happen. If I do this, I'm going to get a paycheck. If I go to this, show up to class for 4 years, I'm going to get this degree, right? But what you're describing is really this leap of faith that has so little form to it that that's where the fear comes in, because you're like, literally, you don't know.
Right.
You don't know.
Right.
But you're saying that every time you don't know, when you felt like it was aligned with what you were supposed to do, a path showed up for you.
Absolutely. The path became really clear, like the moment after. So yeah, I left teaching to go study marine biology, got a master's degree, finished that degree. I'm working in the lab, and I had started painting just for fun. And I wasn't necessarily considering a career as an artist yet, but I was feeling like I needed to leave the lab to figure out my next step. And I gave notice to my advisor that I was leaving the lab, and literally the next day I got a phone call with a big painting commission. Literally the next day. Wow. And I just felt like, oh, okay, this is supported, like this is the direction I'm supposed to be going. And I feel like every time I took a little step in that direction, more steps would present themselves in front of me. Like it just felt so much more natural. And I kept trying to force the marine biology thing. I was going for job interviews, applying for 1 million jobs, flying across the country, and then I wouldn't get the job, and then I would get more painting commissions. And so I just, had to kind of say to myself, Amanda, which path is feeling easier? It was so obvious that it was easier to follow the path to being an artist.
Right.
That just kept presenting itself. And I kept fighting it because in my head I thought, no, I just got this degree. This is what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
Or I have so much invested in this, so I should do it, or I have to do it.
Right.
I saw a great therapist years ago who spoke to me about sunk costs. Have you ever discussed sunk costs?
No.
It's a weird thing we do when we make decisions, and this is probably true for a lot of people that are thinking about leaving something or making a jump. We feel like we've invested so much that we should stay. And she's like, you should never consider sunk cost. You just don't. Moving forward, you just consider, like, what's next? What do you want to do? It doesn't matter what you put into this before.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because what you're describing is, it would suggest that there's always an end to whatever it is that we're doing. So for example, it would say this relationship has to be it forever. Right. This job has to be it forever. Why can't things be something, just like college is, so many years, and then we move on.
Right. A
car we have for so long. We live in a house for so long. So many times I think one way that people believe is that it's like to make the right decision, it has to be a forever decision.
Yes.
And what if it's just something we get to enjoy along the way?
For a little while.
A little while.
Yeah.
We hold it and we give gratitude and we release.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm sure in your degree as a marine biologist that you learned things and you developed as a human being in a way that still served you as you went on in whatever way that you went from there, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I paint wildlife. And so my marine biology informs my art.
Yes.
And I think the fact that I have master's degrees in other things, in education, that helps me to be a successful full-time business owner and
Right.
artist in ways that I probably don't even realize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it all led up to where I am.
Right.
And it doesn't have to look like other people think it needs to look.
Yeah.
That didn't mean that I had to be a teacher forever or a marine biologist forever. Those were just the steps on my path to get where I am now. And I am so content and so happy because I followed that path.
So this is what I'm wondering is I think sometimes people will stay in something also not just because of sunken costs, but because of other people's expectations.
Yes.
So I'd be curious to know, was everybody around you when you shifted gears and you were like, I'm not going to do this degree, was everybody like, yeah, that totally makes sense, you should be an artist, or how did people respond to this decision that's, how did people respond?
The people, especially the people who are parental figures, freaked out.
Okay.
My actual parents thought I was nuts. Like, what? You're going to be a painter full time? You have a degree in education. You have a degree in biology. Why would you be an artist now, which you have no training in? They freaked out. And my advisor in graduate school, who becomes like a father figure, he also was like, what? Why would you do that when you can do research on, and I was doing climate change research, he's like, you could change the trajectory of the planet if you keep working on this. And he couldn't see the importance of what I needed to do and the creative work that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But they have all come around. They've all watched me flourish as an artist, and they all have said at different points, like, oh, wow, okay, that is what you were meant to do. But it took them a lot longer.
So you had to believe this inside yourself to such a degree that there wasn't necessarily external support for this, but that you had to just know, this is my right. This is my right, next right step.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
With so much certainty that you were willing to do it despite what people were saying.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're talking about intuition. You kind of mentioned it was a path of least resistance, or a path that just kind of had flow to it, right? So what does your thoughts or your body, how does that feel to you to be on a path where you would describe it as being in flow?
It just feels more open and expansive, I think.
Okay,
like,
you
I
went
feel
like this
yes,
when
like,
you did that.
like, yes, like my heart is open, my chest is
Yeah.
open, I can breathe. I don't get weighed down in those indecisive, cyclic thoughts that keep you up at night.
Yes.
I feel like when I am taking a turn off the path, and it's often because I'm like, well, I should do this. That's when I start to get just bogged down.
Yeah.
Right? Physically, emotionally, I get bogged down. I start to feel that heaviness.
Right.
And when I'm making the choices that I feel like I'm more aligned, everything just feels, physically I feel better, and everything just feels lighter and more open and easeful.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a physical sensation that it kind of, I talk a lot about like the emphatic yes.
Yes.
And it's like everything in you, it's like your mind, body, and spirit is like, yes.
It's a hell yes or a hell no.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
I try to live by that now. If I am
That's great.
indecisive, I sit with it longer. And I would love for things now, from now on, to be a hell no. Like, nope, it's just not resonating. I'm not going to overthink it.
Right.
Or absolutely yes.
Yeah. So in that hell no, and you're not going to overthink it, your body, it sounds like, is not doing this. It's not spacious, which is clearly a yes. And if it's not that feeling and it's not in flow, that's your no.
Right. And
Or
a
at
no,
least to sit with it.
yes, and a no doesn't necessarily mean never. I've learned that too. It's like, it's just, no, not right now.
Yes.
And that's okay. And it helps to say no. Because if I let things sit in this maybe, then they become my indecisive things that clog up my space. So I have to be more, yes, no. Yes, that works for me. No, this doesn't.
That's interesting. So I kind of similar terms, and I'd be interested to hear more about this. So I say, you say hell yes, hell no. I say an emphatic yes,
Yes.
an emphatic no. And then the I don't know still has no in it, right? K-N-O-W. And so that doesn't mean no. It means no right now because I need to get more information. So I sit with it a little longer until it's a hell yes or a hell no.
Right.
But I need more information. There's something that's not allowing me to make a decision. And so our job then is to figure out what that information is that we need to know. But it's a no until it's an emphatic yes and an emphatic no. So if you're not going to do the work on trying to figure out if it's a yes or a no, then it sits there until you do.
Right.
But I don't ever go with an I don't know until
Right.
it's one of the extreme
Or
or the
force
other.
and don't force an I don't know to a yes.
Yes.
Because you feel like you should.
Right. Yeah. We know we're shitting all over ourselves.
Shooting is no
It's
bueno.
not good. It is not good. Yeah. So it's interesting because sometimes I feel like some people, they're lucky to maybe have one time in their life they make a dramatic change that kind of goes against tradition or expectations. You've had several.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it gets easier? And did you have role models also? Do you feel like it's been easier, and do you have role models that kind of led you to believe that this was kind of a thing, or is it something you kind of went into on your own?
I feel like definitely at least the first one I went in on my own, I just felt so dissatisfied and so sick that I was like, there has to be something else. And I guess I just thought like I could always come back to teaching.
There you go.
I had my teaching certificate. I had a few years to decide before it would expire, and I just felt like I at least need to go explore these possibilities.
Nice.
Yeah, and I don't know if it gets easier because each jump was different.
Mm-hmm.
My last jump actually was from being a full-time artist in Charleston, where I had a very established career and a very successful business, to come live in the mountains where my heart really wants to be. That was a tough one too, and
Yeah.
that one was hard, and it took me a little while to fully say, I feel like I do it sometimes in baby steps. I take a leave, I ask for some time before I finally say like, okay, yes, I'm leaving and I'm not coming back. I'm making this a permanent step. So I don't know if it gets easier or if it just gets, I guess I do just have that confidence more quickly afterwards. Like I know I'll be okay.
Yeah.
That comes more quickly of
Yeah.
like, wow, that was a scary one, but I trust, I know I've done it before. Things always come back around, and I will be okay.
Yeah.
I just feel that.
It feels like the first time you don't know that the road's going to rise before you.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that over time you start to know that there's uncertainty with how the road's going to rise, but it will,
Right.
right? Which makes it a little easier
less.
to give you that confidence that you're starting to feel as you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every time I've made that jump, and especially this last time, I think I convinced myself, like, okay, that one thing is not going to be my future, my forever. You said, like, we think sometimes we have to commit to things forever, right? I was an artist in Charleston, South Carolina for a while. I know that's not my forever now. I left it and I've moved on. But now I have infinite possibilities in front of me. Now my future, I know it's not that, and I could be a little sad about that, perhaps. But the joy comes in knowing, but like, now it could be anything, anywhere. And that has always helped me get through these leaps of just like, wow, okay, it's not that relationship or that person, it's not that job or this place that I lived, but everything just opened up.
Yes.
And that helps me.
That's interesting. Earlier when we were talking, one of the things I noticed is you still have art in Charleston. You have a gallery here in Asheville. You have your online presence. You not only have the pieces that come through you and are just something that's personal to you, but you also have commissions, right?
Yeah.
So it almost feels like, I wonder, was there a time, you're describing spaciousness.
Yes.
You're describing expansion, which you kind of fits along with this, right? The possibilities. But was there a time along the way that you had a very prescriptive, like, this is what it's going to look like, even as an artist? Or have you always kind of had that, well, let's see where this goes. I don't know what's going to happen. Do you have a stance of, like, how does it get to that point? It's because I feel like you're a successful artist, and there are sometimes people that do something non-traditional that it takes a lot longer, you know?
Yeah.
So you've got something in your thoughts and your emotions and in your belief system that makes you successful.
I think it is that I didn't have a set idea. I think when I first started as an artist, for example, I thought the goal is to like get in galleries. And I got in galleries in the beginning, and I realized they take half, and it's hard to make a living that way. And I've also always been someone that just tries a lot of different things. I've always got multiple pieces moving and experimenting and figuring out what works. And I'm still doing that, and I'm still trying to keep like teaching art, like selling in a gallery, selling myself, doing commissions, like you said. The multiple income streams support me now. I've figured that out over time. And just, I think continually experimenting to see what flows.
Yes.
What works. And even in marine biology, when I entered that degree, I didn't have a set idea of what I would do at the end.
Right.
I was open to what direction I would end up going when I got out. And so maybe that's just a personality trait. I don't know.
But I do think that's a really important piece for the listener to hear is that instead of having this fixed stance, like everything, it has to be this way, you have this belief that you're just kind of curious. You're like, I don't know, maybe this. And because you're willing to be curious about it, then it's just information that informs the direction that you go. You see if it works or if it doesn't work, right?
Right.
But that allows for you, that curiosity allows for you to pivot, accordingly. So those curiosities that you get, how do you know which ones? Because I'm sure you have more things that you've thought about doing than what you actually are doing.
Yeah.
To the people that have like hundreds of ideas, how do you narrow down which ones you're actually going to put into practice? Like, think of one that you just recently added. What kind of factors were involved for you to...
Teaching, painting?
Okay. Yeah.
For me, I think that was... It's an extra income stream that helps just provide some stability for me to keep doing what I want to do.
Okay.
But it's something that I'm comfortable with because I have a background in teaching, so it's not completely new to me. So if I'm choosing all options for income to supplement, this is one that I'm comfortable with and I have some background in. And it also is one that I thought of it. I thought maybe I'll do some teaching, and then literally Kristen, who we both know, ran up to me the following week and asked me to teach. And so again, this is like the path presenting itself and trusting it. I felt like, wow, okay, I just had this thought that maybe I would like to teach, and the opportunity to teach just chased me down the street and begged me to do it. She literally chased me down the street and was like, please, 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 we need an oil painter to teach. And I thought, I'm going to take that as a sign that this is part of what I'm supposed to do now. And so it's a combination, I think, of my intuition of what I would know I want to do or could do, and then the signs that I get or the paths that present themselves, or if I'm applying to a bunch of galleries and not getting in, I don't get down on myself and think my work isn't good enough. I think, okay, I'm not meant to do that right now, so what other ways can I do this?
So what doors are open?
I take those shut doors as okay, that's not, or traveling for shows. I used to travel for shows. I've applied to some lately and I haven't gotten in, and I just think, okay, I'm going to stay put for a minute. And what does that look like? And how do I sign up for things here to show my art locally? And maybe that's the path. And just noticing that, not being too attached to it, and just proceeding in the ways that, seem to flow. And
beautiful. Yeah, Gabby Bernstein describes that in one of her books. She says obstacles are detours in the right direction. And I like that, and that's what you're describing, because so many times I think people take that you can take it as a self-criticism. You can say, oh, like you said, nobody likes my work and blah, 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 blah. And it's in actuality, it's just about you and the universe. It's not about other people. It's so if it's a closed door, and that's what you're going to do is be an artist, it doesn't have anything to do with worth. Right? It has everything to do with if you keep an attitude of, oh no, I'm actually being ushered into the right direction for me that aligns with where I want to go. I can't tell you how many times I've had a door shut that I've muscled up and I've thought about it, but then one of my, somebody that I know talks about how this or better. And so sometimes I feel like the universe always has the better. Right? And so I'm always trying to push this, or just to I'm getting a nudge to do this, and that's usually pretty good.
Right.
But the universe sometimes has a way to do this that's way better than what I'm coming up with. right? It's like following that open door. So instead of having 10 closed doors, if I just follow the one the universe tells me, it's easier.
Right.
You're in flow, right?
More efficient way of getting it.
Absolutely, yeah. So anything else that you'd like to share? Because I think what the direction that we've gone today, and something that I feel like is really important and I'm passionate about, is really helping for our listener to continue to recognize that it's normal to have fear. It's normal to have uncertainty. It's normal to have a desire to do something different than maybe what we've thought we should do.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we have to live our whole lives committed to this other thing at the expense of living our life. The more examples we can see of that with people living their life, the more we're going to be willing to do that because we see other people taking that risk.
Yeah.
Hang on just a second. We're going to get this beautiful little ladybug.
I get my nose too, because I'm like, oh, my nose is dripping.
Okay. All right.
Oh, ladybug in my hair. That's good luck. I think that's good luck.
Okay.
Okay. So, I think my best example that came to mind of that is just with teaching. That I felt like I taught for 7.5 years, and that's as long as I could do that well. And that even though I had committed, I felt like I had committed to 30 years. I felt like I committed to a career teaching, and it would have been easy to talk myself into staying because like I owed those kids something, or because I had that degree. Yeah, I think it was important for me to let go of it just by saying, this is as long as I can do this well.
Yeah. That's so important, I think, for people to honor. When you can't do something well anymore, you're leaving space for somebody else to come in and do that thing well.
Right.
And you get to go somewhere else and do that thing well.
You don't owe it to anyone.
No.
Yeah, it's with any path you take in life, you have to be doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
You have to be honoring your intuition, your needs, your path.
Right.
Which a lot of people have opinions about, but it doesn't truly impact them.
Right. So the last thing I'd like to talk about, I remember earlier you sharing a story, and I love stories. You sharing a story about how you gave an analogy with snowboarding. And you were talking about that regarding moving forward and approaching fear. Would you kind of share with people a little bit about how you approach that and using that?
Yeah, well, I think we were talking about that feeling. I was saying, you kind of have to, I can't advise people to like jump from your career and say, you're going to feel safe right away. There's going to be a moment of kind of weightlessness, I think, of sort of being untethered and floating and like, oh my gosh, did I do the right thing? And I don't have my path quite ready yet. I'm not on solid ground yet.
Right.
And yeah, I compared it to snowboarding, where, and it is a scary sport for me, but I love it. I love it, I think, because of that little rush. So I can be on an edge going down a hill and I feel safe. Like, you're on an edge, you're secure, you're turning.
Okay.
But when you go to make an actual turn, there's a moment when your board is flat on the snow and just sliding around. You have to go through that moment to catch the next edge.
Okay.
And that moment is like where you can get squirrely and fall.
And your back is where?
And your back is downhill. Your back is where you're going. Your back is facing...
So you're blind.
You're blind. Yes. You're
going
blind
down a hill
and floating without an edge.
Yeah.
And that's the best description I can think of. Like, but once you catch the edge, you're fine.
Yeah.
And you have to float through that. There is no way to go directly from an edge to an edge. There's no way to go directly from a safe, secure job to your next path, just solid. There is gonna be this moment of float. And so just embracing it as like the fun, and that can be the fun part. That's also the fun part. When I get to the bottom of the hill, sometimes I go flat on purpose and let it be
Oh, interesting.
a little wobbly.
Yeah.
Because that can be fun if you embrace it.
Yeah.
But
And
just knowing it's going to be there.
Yeah. And I think, you know, you have experience. So the first time you do it, it's scarier than the second time you do it, than the third time you do it. And when you start down the hill, it feels different than when you land at the bottom of the hill. So there is something to the experience factor of not knowing and getting through that. And it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I actually do have one more thing. Okay. And this is Bodhi, by the way, if you keep seeing
little hound head popping
hound
out.
head, yeah. Are you happy with your decisions in your life? Are you glad that you made a different decision than where you were started?
Absolutely, 100%. Because I feel like I was able to teach, and I lived on a sailboat. I did marine biology. I traveled to Antarctica. Now I got to experience being an artist. I know there are more. There will be more podcasts. There's more.
Sailboat and
I lived on a sailboat. I went to Antarctica. There's a lot.
So you did those things though because you got out of something that you should do.
Yes.
And it freed you up
for
something that you wanted to do.
If I'd still been a high school teacher in Michigan, that's what I would have done all the way through, and that would be my one experience.
Right. It's an option.
It is, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with it for people who are still finding joy in that and fulfillment, but I was not.
Yeah. And
so I am super grateful, even for the hard times. And there were hard, scary times in all those transitions, absolutely. But I wouldn't trade it at all. It's been wonderful.
At what point along the way, because I do feel like beyond experience, you're also cultivating something else. You're cultivating the capacity to trust your body, because your body is like I'm hearing you talk about how much your body's speaking to you, and I know that when I met Amanda about a month ago, we were at an artist retreat together, and she led a yoga experience.
Yes.
How does yoga and different body work impact your listening to your body? Like, what kind of practices do you do to help with that?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. My yoga practice definitely just helps me to be more aware, because that's what you do in yoga. You settle in and pay attention to your senses and different parts of your body and where you're feeling tension or tightness, and just letting that inform you. I do a lot of breath work, a lot of meditation. And I think that is the thing that does get easier with time. You start to really feel your yeses and nos. You start to really sense, and times now that I'm indecisive, I'm like, I say to myself, like, out of your head, into your gut. What I know deep down how I feel about something. And a lot of times I just don't like that answer.
Yes.
And so it's sitting with it and going, okay, this is what my body's telling me, and learning to trust that more than all the reason your mind tries to come up with to talk you out of things.
Yeah.
It's trusting the body more, and knowing that somehow there is something else that's meant for you that you don't have to understand right now. Trust your body.
I love that. I would be curious, like I'm just thinking back on my own shift, and I enjoyed everything that I've done in my career, and I'm so appreciative for those experiences. But I would say once I started meditation and yoga, that is when I started to kind of wake up to that there was more within me that I was suppressing, that I was curious about what would happen if I did this direction. Like, what is that?
They are great tools for quieting. They are great tools for quieting the mind and tuning in.
Right. We believe that our mind is truth.
Reality.
And reality. But it's not. If you think about every single thing that you think in your mind, is all of it true? No. But yet we give so much credibility to everything that we're thinking, when really our body's the thing that doesn't betray us and knows what is right for us. It's that emphatic yes and emphatic no. So if you were going to start somewhere today to be more connected to your body, a practice, it's like any skill. People aren't necessarily born with it. with the ability to know what they're thinking and feeling, or what they're feeling in their body and what's right for them intuitively. It's something that we have to cultivate. And it starts with getting quiet so that we can hear what our body has to say over what our mind is telling us, which is constantly chattering.
Exactly.
You know? All right, so is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you, before we get into like how people can contact you, is there anything that you haven't shared within your story that you're like, this is something that you would want people to know about, what's important, even if it's not directly connected to what we've talked about, but something that you're like on this authentic journey, this is important?
I just think maybe just the one skill that I share, or the tip that I share with people, is just that if you're able to, creating a little nest egg of some sort can be helpful. So
Yes.
if there's someone out there that's thinking, I really want to make a jump, especially career, it can be scary financially, one of the best things you can do is just save a little nest egg. A little financial savings can help you bridge that gap. And that also gives you an end goal. Like you might say, I'm not ready to make my jump today, but
Yep.
in 2 years, and I know I'm going to be able to save, or I'm going to be able to pay off my house, or I'm going to be able to do something to help be supportive. I just think that's a good tip for a lot of people that are feeling anxious about that jump.
That's great. That's great advice. And along with that, I've seen people that have sold things that are unnecessary. If you've got a bunch of stuff that you're not using, sell it, put it away, right? I've had people downsize. That's how I funded, my shift, was to move from a house. And I was like, is a house more important than seeing what's on the other side of this? And I decided that I was going to rent and spend time living this life, right? And so sometimes we say that something's true, that we're really stuck, when we're really not stuck. It's just that we're going to have to do a lifestyle change. We're going to need to make different decisions. But when you get right down to it, when you ask yourself, is this true? Oftentimes there's more. When you create the spaciousness, there, like you said, like it's almost like the road rises once you don't have this fixed belief about what is.
Right.
When you release what is, then suddenly it's expansive about what can come in as a possibility.
Yeah, there are definitely obstacles that could be removed from
Absolutely.
any situation that you have power over, that you can remove to make that path easier.
Yeah, yeah. And if you don't believe that, take a couple of trusted people and ask them.
Yeah.
And usually they'll have some ideas about that. All right, so if people want to learn more about you and your work, or to get more engaged, or to contact you, how would people go about that?
All my contact is just my name. So it's Amanda McLenon, McLenon. That's my Instagram. That's my website with my artwork.
And a lot of people travel to Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah.
This is a big tourist destination. So you have a gallery here too.
Yeah, I have a new gallery I just opened in July. So
Okay.
It's in the Pink Dog Creative Building, 344 Depot Street.
Yep, and that's down in the River Arts District. So, and you have a gallery in there, right?
Yeah, I have a gallery, and it's my working studio. So that's where I create my work too, so people can see all the stages of creation, which is cool.
Excellent. So check out Amanda. So thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you. Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Great discussion today. So everybody, Micah McKenzie is the one that did the incredible cover art for Click Moments. So a special thanks to Micah. We appreciate you as always. And until next time, my friends, peace, love, and joy.